we've got the jars with the turkey meat in it, the white meat in the canner, and so while we're waiting for that to start venting, we'll start getting the rest of the turkey processed here. So I'm going to go ahead and throw these into the stock pot. This is carrots, celery, and onions. So I will point out that, I don't know if you can see it, but the onions, I just left the skins on. You just cut it up and throw it in, perfectly good. And actually, if you leave the skins on, they'll give the stock a beautiful yellow color, makes it delicious. The celery is just bits of the tops that I normally don't use in recipes. The carrots are not peeled, they're just scrubbed clean and in they go. Now we're going to start getting the rest of the stuff for the pot and for the pieces for our dinner tonight. So I'm going to start with the wings. Some people love the wings. We're not fond of eating them here, so they're just going to go into the stock pot. And we'll get the meat from them later on. Getting those wings off makes it easier to then get the legs off of the bird. I find it easier if I cut underneath it first, and it releases the tendon, and then you don't end up fighting with it to get it off of the carcass. You go right in between the joint and it's gone into the pot. And that pot is already nice and hot for the stock. So at this point, all I want is to get the leg. That is tonight's dinner. And cut away the skin where you're needing to separate it. I think this is going to be 2 dinners. This is a lot of food. Let's see. Try to slide the knife in between the rib cage bone and the leg itself. Then you can get to the joint. Just dislocate the joint. Wow, that's huge. Yeah, this is going to be a couple of meals. And into the pan it goes. All right, and the next one, I don't know if you can see this. Let me get the skin out of the way. So right in here is where I'm going to try and separate it from the rib cage, so it's an easy separation. Right in here. And pull it this way, it separates the joint. Ta-da, there you go. All right, really all we've got left now is the carcass. And I'm going to pull the skin off because you don't really want to have to spend all of that time and energy skimming off all of the fat from the broth. This will give me a broth that's really quite lean. I'm actually going to get rid of the tail because it's really nothing but fat. So into the trash. The skin does not come off the back of the bird that easily, but just be careful and kind of pull it away with your hands and get your knife in there. Just keep it away from your fingers. There's a whole lot of fat underneath the skin of turkeys. So that's it. That's going into the stock pot. Careful putting it in so you don't get splashed because that water is now hot. I'm going to wash my hands and put the lid on, and I will be back with you. Okay, did a little cleaning up, and we're about ready to put the lid on the stock pot here. I think I'll probably add a little bit more hot water to it. There we go. This is going to cook all night on very low, and by morning we will have the most beautiful bone broth. I combine stir it every once in a while, but we are good. All right, thank you for visiting my kitchen this morning, and I am going to be coming back when it's time to put the stock into the pint jars and get that canned. So thank you, and stay tuned. Don't go away. I'm going to come back with the rest of the video in the morning when it's time to finish it up. So this pot has been cooking for several hours now. Look how beautiful that is. So come back in every once in a while, every hour or two, and stir this pot. Of course, it's going to be cooking overnight, so you don't need to get up and do that. But while you're awake and up and around, give it a stir every hour or two, and it will make some very beautiful bone broth for you. Okay, welcome back. It's the next day, and our turkey stock simmered all night long. It's beautiful and rich. The next thing that needs to happen is to strain all of the solids out of the stock. So it's the remnants of the bones and the meat and the vegetables that were put in here for the flavoring. I mean, look at all of that. There's a lot of meat still that we're going to be able to save and use for another meal. So I'm going to go ahead and get this strained out, and I will be back when it's time to start the canning process. Okay, we're back, and where we left off, I was just straining the bones and meat and the vegetables out of the broth. After I got that finished, I decided I wanted to put the broth into the refrigerator for a little while so that the fat on the top could congeal. So I did that, brought it back out, I've skimmed it off, and now the broth is reheating again. So I just wanted to share with you how much meat came out once I sorted the bones from the vegetables and the meat. That's quite a bit of meat here. This would make a really nice turkey noodle casserole or turkey pot pie, turkey and dumplings. It would be delicious. Also, there was some little scrubbins of meat in there that was really too small to do anything with, so the dog got that as well. So we had one happy puppy getting a really nice dinner. And here is the meat. That was all breast meat that we canned, and that will be nice having that on the shelf to use another day. So I'm in the process now of filling my jars. Once I get a few of those done and you get an overview, then I'm going to switch to a different camera angle so you can see it close up. But so far I've filled one jar, and I've cleaned the top of it. with vinegar, just like I did with the meat. I'm going to take one of my jar lids and put it on just finger tight. Beyond that, you don't want. Now we use the jar lifter. That jar is quite hot because the broth is hot, so we're going to get it into the canner that has hot water in it, and there's a very low flame under there to keep it good and hot. So we'll do the next one. You probably hear my dog barking in the background. That's Molly. She's a Great Pyrenees, and anything that moves, flies, flutters, falls from the trees, she's going to be barking at it. So she's a guard dog, and she does her job very well, but she tends to do a lot of barking. Okay, getting close to the 1 inch mark. So that's about 4 ladles. It's about 4 ladles full of the broth. And again, I will use a little vinegar on this cloth. Make sure that there's no bit of broth, fat, anything left on that jar, because that will prevent it from sealing. I don't worry about the water in here. That's fine. Let's get a few more of my canning rings here. That's hot. Finger tight. Pick it up and get it into the canner. So I believe the canner will hold 9 pints. So I'm going to continue on and filling these, and when it's time to put the, what do you call it? There's another level that we can put for our canning jar. So I'm going to do that, and I'll see you shortly. Okay, I've changed the angle here for you, and I'm just going to continue filling all of my jars until it's time to put the separator in the canner, and then we'll get the next layer going. I do have a cork underneath here because these jars really are hot, and I just didn't want the heat to be transferred to the counter and possibly having something go wrong with the temperature differential between the counter and the glass jars. So that's just a little extra insurance to keep it from breaking. All right, that actually needs a little bit more. I believe the bottom layer of my canner will hold about 9 jars. Once you get going, it really does go very quickly. All right, room for one more. We're going to end up having to do this in 2 separate batches because there is not going to be enough room in this one canner to get all 22, 23 pints in. So it will be done in 2 parts. A little more. All right, last one in the bottom layer. I'm going to try and show you what that looks like. Hopefully don't drop the camera down in there. There you go. Okay, so now I'm going to put the divider in like this. That's going on top of the jars that are already in the canner, and then we just keep going. Woo, snapping already. And it's okay if the lids kind of snap every now and then. They're going to do that with the changes in temperature. When they're all finally processed, what you want to note is that every single one of the jars, the little nipple on the top is indented. That tells you that the jar has been pressurized and it's been properly processed. So this isn't going to be a complete tutorial on how to pressure can broth, but I thought it would just be interesting to see part of the process. It's not difficult. I know a lot of people are very frightened to use a pressure canner or a pressure cooker, but really they're very safe. I know there was horror stories in days gone by when people had pressure cookers or pressure canners blow up on them, but there's so many safety features in these now that it's really not going to be an issue. So by all means, get yourself a pressure canner and learn to do this. It's so much cheaper to do your own broth and soups and stews and that kind of thing than it is to have to buy it in the store, and you're going to be in control of all of the ingredients and know exactly what you're getting instead of a bunch of artificial preservatives and colors and GMOs and who knows what else. This is definitely the way to go. And talk about expense. It's so much cheaper to do this yourself. You know, if you're throwing away a turkey carcass after Thanksgiving or whenever you've used a whole turkey and you're just throwing it away, man, you are throwing away like 22, 23 pints of beautiful broth. So I don't think anybody can afford to do that these days. So I think maybe 3 more after this one and the canner will be full. little more so you can see the canner. Okay, so at this point everything is in the canner. Oops. So there's 9 on the bottom and 7 on the top. So I'm going to put the lid on, and there's a specific way that it goes on. You need to make sure that it's completely level. And then it pivots and locks in place. It looks good. Okay, one at a time. You start to close it up. You do the opposite ones on each side. I'm just doing these loosely to start with, and then I'll go back around and make them tight. Okay, I'll turn the heat up to between medium and medium high until we start to see all right, the steam come out of, there you go, this spigot on the top here, and then I'll come back to you and explain it a little bit farther. Okay, if you can see the steam that's coming out at a good clip on this canner, that's what needs to happen for 10 minutes before the weight is put on. So when the steam has been venting for 10 minutes, that makes it time to put the weight on. And for my altitude, that will be 10 pounds. All right, when that starts to jiggle regularly, about 4 times a minute, then it's time to start timing. And for this particular product, the turkey broth, it's going to be canned for 20 minutes. Okay, you can see the weight is jiggling around on the top of the canner. It's frequently also called a jiggler, and you can see why. So you want to see the weight doing this about once every 15 seconds or so. If it goes continuously like this, then you need to reduce the heat. If it's less than 4 times a minute, then you want to increase the heat, just so that you keep it at about 10 pounds of pressure. So I'm going to watch this for a minute. It should stop. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat down on this and watch it for a minute, and then I'll show you again. Okay, I've turned the heat down a little bit on it. It's starting to slow down in the jiggling. And again, what we really want to see, it just kind of jiggling once about every 15 seconds or 4 times a minute. There it goes. So I will keep a watching on it, but since we have at least maintained the 10 pounds of pressure, I'm going to go ahead and start timing it. So since this is pints we're canning, we need to let it run for 20 minutes. If we were doing quarts, we would be doing it for 25. But in this case, it's going to be 20 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and set the timer and watch the jiggler or wait just to make sure it continues to do what it's supposed to, and I will be back when it's done. Well, we are back, and the first canner of our turkey broth has finished. It processed for 20 minutes. I then turned off the heat, and it has come down to room temperature. The temperature gauge shows that it has dropped down, so it's now safe to take it all apart and see how we did. So you're going to be undoing the latches the same way you put them in, is a little bit at a time, across from each other. Whoops, that was tightening. Okay, now I'm hoping we are able to open it up and see that there has not been any siphoning. Siphoning occurs when a little bit of the fluid comes out of the jars. Well, actually, a lot of the fluid can come out of the jars when there's a case of extreme siphoning. We hope that doesn't happen. Occasionally a little bit is fine, but I prefer to not have that happen. So let's see what we got here. All right, you can see the steam rising. So I can see some of the jars have already sealed. I don't know if I can move the camera so that you can see this or not. But some of them have sealed and some are probably going to start to ping. Let me see if I got this right here. As we take them out. When you hear the ping, that is the sound of the jar sealing. So this top layer all looks real good. You can see, beautiful color. No siphoning from that jar. I'm taking them over to the countertop over here, where they're going to sit for 24 hours without being disturbed. Cloth under here. All right, this one has not yet fully sealed, but that's okay. Sometimes when you take them out, you can see bubbles rising. And that's only because it's still kind of boiling inside the jar. I don't see any of these doing that. We might find that with the lower level of jars. There we go. You just heard one snap. Okay. They're all looking real good. And if you find any of the jar rings are loose, that's totally fine. That does normally happen in the process of canning, nothing to be disturbed about. All right, top layer all looks good. All right, let me find something to, probably hear them snapping in the background there. A little plate that separated the layers. Okay, it looks pretty good. I don't think we had any siphoning of the turkey broth. Still looking good. Okay, that does it. There's been no siphoning in the pot, so we're going to continue on and fill the rest of the jars. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.